During this presentation of the Toyota Production System, I'm discussing standardization and the documentation of that standardization. This is a fundamental key of the Toyota Production System. When I talk about standardization, I'm not talking about something like a USB port or even the look and feel of a document. This discussion is about standardizing processes. A process is comprised of activities, so we are discussing standardizing all the activities within a process for every process. First off, let's discuss what is process standardization. I'm starting off with the goal of process standardization. That is to repeat a process and its activities exactly the same every time. In the Toyota Production System, the current standardized process represents the best practice. Toyota's goal is to continually improve that best practice. Standardizing a process refers to any process in your system. No matter what your industry, you operate processes. I'll give you a medical example. A hospital has what are called hospital-acquired infections, and these are just what the name says. They are infections that a patient incurs that was delivered to the patient by the hospital. A hospital could minimize those infections by 1. Standardizing every process, and 2. Validating adherence to those processes. Whether you run an insurance business, a manufacturing business, or any other business, standardize your processes. There are 2 simple reasons you standardize processes. The first one is to create repeatable output of your processes. This sets standard expectations for your business and your customers. Your customers want standard, repeatable products or services. Just as important, as I mentioned before, the standardized process represents the best practice. The best practice can change. It changes with improvement ideas, and that's exactly what continuous improvement does. Toyota's continuous improvement program builds upon 11 ideas by everyone in the company every year. So just take 11 and multiply it by the number of your employees, and you get a feel for the magnitude of Toyota's continuous improvement program. As an aside, Toyota's continuous improvement methodology directs 100% of its improvement in the direction of a vision or challenge defined by the business. This slide addresses the ability to standardize your processes. The goal is to standardize every process in your company. The ability to accomplish this is dependent upon your ability to execute every process exactly the same. Sometimes that is not possible. Sometimes the customer expectations won't allow standardized processes. Let me give you 2 examples. The big semis that you see driving around are all customized. No 2 are the same. This creates a challenge for some processes to be standardized, but only in one small part of the business. Almost all the business could rely on standardized processes. The second business I'm thinking of has the same problem. That is Harley-Davidson motorcycles. No 2 of those are the same. So every time through the manufacturing line, part selection is not standardized. This is also a challenge to standardizing your processes. What both of these businesses should try is to standardize as much as possible. To a smaller extent, Toyota manufactures different cars on the same assembly line. So when they supply the workers in the process with assembly parts, they are different and dependent on the car model. Toyota must stack their delivery of parts considering what car is being manufactured. It is a similar problem to the above 2 examples, but not nearly as complex. The next discussion is on documentation of your standardized processes. The answer is yes. All standardized processes should be documented. All processes should be documented. If the process has visible activities, then post the documentation in a manner that people passing by can see the documentation of what you should be doing and compare it to what you are doing. This is a constant audit of the process. By the way, you audit the process, not the product or service. If you are executing a process whose activities are hidden from view, then it doesn't make much difference whether you post that process facing towards you or away from you. I might recommend that you focus it towards you so you can perform a self-audit. If your process is deviating from the standard, then notify management and document the improved process. I mentioned earlier that you execute quality control on the process, not the deliverable of the process. It used to be that companies would pay quality control engineers to sample products for errors or defects. Toyota leaves that up to the process operators. Therefore, defects are neither hidden nor erroneously passed on. I give you 4 reasons here for documenting your standard processes. 1. Documenting the process makes you really think through the process and understand it. 2. Once the process is documented, you now have the defined best practice process. 3. The documentation of the process gives you something to compare your activities against. And 4, most importantly, the documented standard process defines the initial starting point of your continuous improvement program, which I will discuss in more detail during a later podcast. Lastly, next week I'm going to diverge a little and talk about how Toyota sets up their first 2 levels of assembly line organizational structure. The journey to greatness is neither fast nor easy. You can definitely adjust how fast you go, but not how easy it is. There is definitely a sequence to greatness. I've built the website www.buildyourtps.com to guide businesses in their use of the tools of the Toyota Production System to take their systems to Six Sigma, just like Toyota.